Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Combine Era edition of Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo and Pete Amato with you as we analyze the draft and the Eagles. You know how we do our show, 4 quarters plus an overtime segment. Please hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. All right, Pete, as we break the huddle, news coming just before we came on today that at DraftKings, the top running back in the country, Bijan Robinson from Texas, listed at plus 275, the favorite to be drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. That's probably going to fly in the face of what a lot of people expect, a running back at number 10. But let's factor that in. Where do you see the Eagles looking at number 10, and what do you think about him?
It is surprising, especially having seen the Eagles. Usually running backs they don't use first-round picks on them, at least that high of a pick. Number 10 is substantially pretty high. Great player, definitely the number one running back coming into the draft. I don't see it going that way. I don't know if it's because I've already had my mind set on what I think they're going to do. They could surprise us. Howie has surprised us in the past. I wouldn't be disappointed in it. I think we do need a whole kind of refresh on our running back game. Miles Sanders is probably not going to get re-signed by the Eagles, and we don't really know what we have with Gainwell and Boston Scott. I think Boston Scott is on his last year of his contract as well. So I wouldn't be disappointed, but I would be pretty surprised. I feel they're going to go towards more of a defensive player, especially. I don't think they're going to re-sign Bradbury. I think he's going to get a lot of money somewhere else, and deservedly so. He had a great season. He bet on himself with that 1-year contract, and I would like them to pick up a player to kind of take his position. And one guy I've been looking at for that number 10 pick for a while now is Kelly Ringo out of Georgia. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. He's long, he's big, and he's fast. He clocked a 4.30, a 4.3 40 time. So we'll see how he does in the combine. But I'm definitely I kind of lean towards the defensive player because I think we need to make up for that position, especially if we lose Bradbury.
Also, the possibility that they don't pick him there, roll the dice a little bit that nobody else takes him, because then they get number 30. And that's something that they can get on the back end or maybe later on. But now, as you evaluate the Eagles in terms of priorities, you got the offensive line, you got defensive players. Let's talk about what you would see as the major priorities for this team, what they need to pick up in the draft, and especially since early picks are valuable, what would you like to see them get at least out of those first 2 picks?
I definitely like to see them fill a couple holes that we're going to need. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be re-signed. Like I said, I don't think Bradbury's going to be re-signed, and that's going to be a big hole to fill. So I would like them to pick up a defensive back with one of the first 2 picks. I would also like to see an edge rusher with the first 2 picks. One guy I was looking at for their second pick, which would be the 30th pick, is Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame. He's had 10 sacks, 9.5 tackles for loss. Like he's had a really good season, and I feel like he'd fit well with our defensive line because he's very athletic. He can play, he can cover a bit if he has to, or he can rush the passer. So and I wouldn't actually put it past them to wait till that 30 pick to pick a running back. Some people are saying that Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama might drop to 30, and he'll be there for the Eagles to pick. So definitely the running back is going to be a point of emphasis for the team. I just don't know if they're going to go as high as that number 10 pick. They might wait till their 30th pick or wait till the second or third round for that.
And then you have to say, we're going to play a little gamesmanship with that position, and that the Chargers at number 21 might take a running back. The Giants at number 23 could take a running back. And then the Dallas Cowboys may take a running back because of Zeke Elliott's contract and Tony Pollard's free agency. So I get the feeling they may also pass on a running back at number 10. Another name that's been floated out there, Devin Witherspoon. He's a cornerback. You have to think of, okay, how secure are they with Darius Slay? He got a year left, right? He's 32.
That's true.
What is the most urgent need for the Eagles defensively?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think defensive back is probably the most urgent need, because I totally forgot Darius Slay is on his last year next year. He's getting up there in age. He doesn't look like he's slowed down much, but you never know what the next season is going to entail. And Bradbury's probably gone, so they can't really go from a great defensive secondary team to basically having nobody there. So I think if they're going to start training these guys and looking to replace these veterans, they're going to have to start now. So especially if we have a big hole that we need to fill there for this season, and then next season with Darius Slay, because he's going to want a big contract.
All right. That's the end of our first quarter. All types of possibilities. The beauty about the NFL draft, anytime someone comes up with a mock draft, it's news, and then people react, and you might see action on the betting board. It creates discussion for the NFL, which is probably the greatest entity to create off-season news that ever was invented in the world of sports. In our second quarter, we'll play a little bit of should they stay or should they go? Second quarter of Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo and Pete Amato. And now we go to Pete for should they stay or should they go? Pete, we'll start off with James Bradbury. Stay or go?
As much as I like from the stay, I think he's gonna want too much money. They're probably gonna let him go. They're gonna let him walk. Like I said, he had a big year, and they already kind of talked to him about it in the locker room, and he said he wants to get paid, basically. So I don't think the Eagles are going to pay him what he wants.
Fletcher Cox.
That's interesting. I think they're going to let him go. I mean, he's getting up there in age. They have Jordan Davis, who's supposed to be the next guy up, and I think that's the ultimate test for Jordan Davis. So as much as everything he's done for us, they got to keep the emotion out of it. Definitely, probably first ballot Hall of Famer, but go.
Brandon Graham, tie back to the championship team of 2018 and this team.
Yeah, this one's hard because I like Brandon Graham, but again, I don't know if he's going to take another home discount. He already did once. Is he going to do it again? I don't think so. I think he's going to go for. I think it's going to be his last contract. And I think he's going to go for the money. So I'd say he's going to go too.
Someone who's been the heart and soul of the Eagles for many fans over the years, Jason Kelce.
I think if he decides that he's not going to retire, I think the only way he's going to not retire if he plays with the Eagles. I don't think he's going to pack up and go to another team. I don't think money's going to be a huge issue for him. I think just whether he wants to play or not, and it's going to be a 1-year contract. I think the Eagles are okay with signing 1-year contracts. So I think if he decides that he's going to play another year and not retire, I think he stays.
Gardner Johnson.
I think the Eagles should definitely re-sign Gardner Johnson. I know it's a safety, but he did a lot of different stuff back there at safety. He had a lot of tackles. He disrupted a lot of offenses. And I think if you let him go, you're gonna see the cause and effect of that pretty quickly. So I'd say resign. I'd say that's maybe their number one priority as far as free agency is Gardner Johnson.
Kazir White.
Kazir White's tough because we haven't had a linebacker that made an impact like he did last season. Saying that, I don't think they're going to pay. Eagles have in the past have not shown that they give a lot of money to that position. So he's probably going to go.
All right, so they are Pete's picks for the nucleus of players being considered on the free agent market. Pete, other than these players mentioned, anybody else come to mind for you who key decisions are going to have to be made about?
Javon Hargrave. That's going to be a big decision. I think that's going to be a harder decision than actually Fletcher Cox. He was so good last year. I mean, he's been good since he's been here. Because if you get rid of Cox and Hargrave, it's going to be a big hole in that middle. And the Eagles been so good against the rush for so long. So Hargrave's going to probably give a pretty steep price, but I don't know if they can afford to lose both of Fletcher Cox and Hargrave. We'll see what they do in the draft, but I think Hargrave is probably one of their main priorities right now. Just see how much he wants in his contract.
Now, someone like a Boston Scott may not have a lot of leverage over the Eagles. Well, what type of moves can they make to get him back? Can you either just get him back cheaper? Or do you just let him go and take him back? Well, what are some of the administrative moves they might consider if they want to keep him?
They'll probably let him go and then get him back if he doesn't get any offers anywhere else, kind of as like to help him, just to kind of thank you for your service. We want you back, but see if you can make more money somewhere else. So I think if no other teams pick him up, I think the Eagles will have him back.
Yeah, stuff like this has been a standard operating procedure throughout the league. Cooper Rush for the Cowboys, let go, but they expect to get him back. I mean, they let him go. He's the backup for Dak Prescott, and they just figure that let him go, and then they'll be able to re-sign him later, and they free up space for whatever they want to do. So they are some of the key considerations that the Eagles have to make in order to try to, I think, make key decisions on their team, Pete, about whether they want to get younger or whether they feel like they want to get stronger and how they do that.
Yeah, saying that, I actually just saw a interview back in, it was 2020 or 2021, where Howie Roseman basically admitted to a fault how he can be overly loyal to these guys. After they won the Super Bowl, he admitted that he may have been overly loyal to guys that he likes and he likes to have around, and he may have made some mistakes by keeping certain guys and keeping them longer than he wanted to down the road, or paying them more than they should have got paid. So I don't think that's going to be an issue this season. I think he learned from his mistakes. I mean, he showed that he's been able to admit his mistakes in the past, and he's been able to right the wrong. So I think I don't think that's going to be an issue this year. I think he's going to. I think there's going to be a lot of guys let go because of the salary cap situation. Whether we get them back or not is one thing, but I think you're going to see a lot of guys being able to kind of see that free agency market and see what they can get somewhere else.
Well, Howie Roseman has had some blockbusters on draft night the last 2 years with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And we're going to talk about his role even more in the third quarter of Why Eagles Why. Third quarter of Why Eagles Why. And Pete, it was a jolt for the continuity of the team that right after their appearance in the Super Bowl, the Eagles lost both their offensive and defensive coordinators. Now you're conducting a draft. Does this give Howie Roseman even more power because he's been there longer and he has a philosophy? Are these coaches going to wait for him to make the call, or do you think that they'll have a lot of input in the process on draft night for the Eagles?
I I think on the offensive side, it might not change too much because Brian Johnson was the quarterback's coach last year, and now he's offensive coordinator, so he knows the team, he knows their needs and their wants and stuff like that. On the defensive side, they hired somebody out of the system, out of the franchise in Sean Desai, and I don't think Howie is going to have, I don't know, any more power when it comes to talent evaluation. And we've saw that he's not the best talent evaluator. I think he will be one of the guys in the room with a mouthpiece and be able to say his position on things and give his opinions. But I don't know if he's going to have the final say. I think that actually might come down to more of Sirianni. Sirianni, I mean, he knows his team. I mean, you've seen his team kind of gravitate to him. The players love him. And I think Howie and Sirianni have such a good relationship. I think there's not going to be any feathers ruffled. So I don't think, I don't think Howie's going to have any more power than he already does. But I do think he might have a little less when it comes to talent evaluation because of Sirianni. This is Sirianni's second year. He's not a new coach anymore. And what he's done with the team these past 2 years.
In 2 years, Nick Sirianni has done a lot. 2 years ago, there was like Nick who, and now they played in the Super Bowl. I always think it's interesting to watch these coordinators, Pete. I mean, because Bill Belichick, the winningest coach of all time now, he was a coordinator when he started out, and then he worked his way. They gained a lot of seasoning that way, and Nick Sirianni was a coordinator. So basically, you're looking at the next realm of potential head coaches. So you've got that. It's going to be interesting with the chemistry, though, with a lot of veteran players and new coaches. That's always a possible source of friction that they have to try to get past and then try to move in the same direction.
Yeah, I think with Brian Johnson, I don't think they would have gave him. I don't think they would have hired him if he had any friction, especially with Hurts. I think Hurts probably had a big part in his hiring as offensive coordinator. He was the quarterback's coach last year. Hurts worked with him a lot, so I think Hurts was probably one of the major factors in him getting this. When it comes to Sean Desai, he's coming from Pete Carroll camp, so I think he sees how coaches should conduct themselves. Pete Carroll is one of the better coaches in the NFL. And the Seahawks have always been a pretty solid defensive team. So I think he's been trained pretty well. So I don't think he's going to come in and start calling guys out right away, but I think he probably has the confidence enough to kind of connect with these guys. I don't think they would have hired them if he didn't have that initial connection with the players. I just think he's been there with Pete Carroll. He's seen how it's done from one of the best coaches in the league, and I think he's going to use that when he comes to Philly.
All right. When we go to the fourth quarter, Pete's grades on the top three Eagles picks from last year. Fourth quarter of Why Eagles, Why? The draft is always fascinating because teams have a choice to make, usually between the shiny new vehicle, a headline-making skill position player, or an infrastructure guy who may not get the same attention, but may do better work long-term. Classic example of this 2 years ago, Pete, was the Cincinnati Bengals, who'd had a bad season. They had a choice of getting Penei Sewell to protect Joe Burrow, or Burrow's college receiver, Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
They went with Jamar Chase, and it was a great move, even though some people thought that was risky because they got into the Super Bowl a couple of years later, and that move worked out. The Eagles did not go for that shiny new car last year. They took infrastructure players. So let's go down the list of three guys who stand out and get your opinion as to what impact they made. Jordan Davis.
I think Jordan Davis was making a pretty good impact until he got hurt, but I'm just worried about his play time. I mean, I feel like he he doesn't play his snaps. He doesn't get enough snaps. And if he's going to take over the defensive tackle position from Cox, I think he needs to get in better shape and be able to get 30, 40 snaps a game like a starter would. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, which is kind of scary because even when he was healthy, he wasn't getting many snaps. He was being put in first, second down, maybe for run defense. And he was great. And he was great when it came to the run defense, but we really didn't see anything from him as far as pass rush because he was never really in there on those third downs or second and longs when they had their pass defense in there. So if I had to give that a grade, I mean, I was a little confused by it when it happened because of his limitations. I know he's super athletic and for a big guy, but like as far as his limitations, we have a very downhill defensive line that very pass rush happy defensive line, and he is just a pure run stopper who really only played. I don't even think he got 50% of the snaps in college. So unless something drastic happens in the offseason and he cuts down some weight and he gets in crazy shape, I don't know if he's going to be able to take those 40 snaps a game like Fletcher Cox would. So I have to give that a C+ for that grade.
All right. How about Dean, Kobe Dean?
I love that pick when they made it, and I still do like it. I feel like as far as a middle linebacker, it takes them a little more time to get acclimated because they're basically the quarterback of the defense. They're calling most of the plays. They're putting their guys into position. And I feel like it takes them a little more time. It's a bigger learning curve for a middle linebacker. So that's why you probably didn't see Dean as much this season. I was kind of surprised with how little we saw him, but the linebackers that were in place for the Eagles did pretty well. So there wasn't a place that we had to rush them in. We kind of let them sit back and kind of learn the game, learn the defense. So I think he's going to be a good addition next season. He's going to get in there as a starter, and I think anything less than that would be a disappointment. If he doesn't go in there as a starter, then it would be a big fail. But I think right now, with how things are looking for him and how he's looked in college, and how low we got him in the draft, I'd give that draft an A.
Draft an A. And what about the performance? Where would you consider his performance?
I don't think he played enough to really to perform. I feel like it wasn't really his fault. But yeah, if I had to give performance, it'd probably be like a C because I didn't think we saw enough to properly.
Yeah, we did think that might have been the steal of the draft. How about Cam Jurgens?
Cam Jurgens, I think was a great pick. As far as his performance, sometimes he looked good. Sometimes he looked like a rookie. I have to give his performance and the pick, I have to give that a B because I think anything when you have a guy, future Hall of Famer like Jason Kelce, putting his stamp of approval on it, you have to take that into consideration and you have to kind of trust the process, if you want to say that as a Philadelphia fan. But seriously, yeah, I think Cam Jurgens, when they needed him this year, he did step up. At times he looked like a rookie, but again, he was a young offensive lineman going into a line that were all veterans that have worked together for years. So it was probably like a tough situation for him. Plus he was playing guard most of the year anyway, and they drafted him to replace Kelce at center. If Kelce stays, they'll probably have him starting as guard next season. So I mean, he has versatility, so that's great. He can play multiple positions on that line. So I'm definitely looking forward to what he can do as a starter in the NFL.
How long does it take, you feel, these guys to make an impact? Devontae Smith, a big second year, combining with a few other elements. And these guys, maybe in a sense, collectively, they may have all went along for the ride and learned this year. but how much should they be expected to grow? And how long do you think it takes for a guy to be a permanent impact player on a team after he's drafted?
I guess it depends on how much of a project somebody is, and you're not going to draft a project in the first and second round. So I think like the first, second, maybe third round, it should be no more than 2 years as far as them being an effective NFL starter. Anything after that, 4, 5, 6, 7, they could be projects, and you could kind of wait a bit longer for them. Let them kind of either get into NFL shape. A lot of these guys are coming in and they're still young. They're college. They're coming out of college, and they don't have all the muscle they would. They don't have all the speed that they would in a couple of years. But yeah, I think it all depends on where you get them in the draft. If you're drafting somebody first or second round, they should probably be ready at least the second year. No later than that. That's just my opinion. If you're gonna, that's a very high draft. I mean, even the second round, a lot of those guys in the second round are NFL ready, especially with these colleges, how they run their programs now.
Well, you never know when a guy is going to come out of the woodwork and just have a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
Witness Hassan Reddick.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Exactly.
His emergence in the second half of the year. And there are a lot of guys that are may get overlooked early, but they become late bloomers. Well, in our overtime segment, we'll get a few more thoughts from Pete. All right, overtime section of Why Eagles, why Dave Bontempo and Pete Amato, leaving you with a parting thought. We all love the combine. We all love the attention that comes out of the combine, the interest. But if you don't see the player you like, you don't always have to fear that guy may emerge eventually. People like Antonio Gates never got through the combine. Wes Welker, Julian Edelman. Sometimes a player is switching positions and may not even get invited to ask to be played, but they emerge later. So have faith. If you like a guy, he'll eventually show up. Pete, what's your parting thought?
You ain't put us in a position to make plays. That was C.J. Gardner-Johnson's tweet about Jonathan Gannon after he basically brushed off a question about the Eagles in the Super Bowl and him coming up small, basically. It just kind of shows that I've been right about Gannon all along. I mean, the players have saw it. He wasn't putting the players in position all season. In my opinion, the talent has carried him all season. And this just shows me that the players have felt that way as well. So it's good to know that I haven't been crazy all this season when I've been crushing Gannon, even when they were the number one defense and this and that. But I just haven't. I was more worried about him than the actual talent on the team, because I feel like he held back that talent, and the talent covered for him a lot of his mistakes, which they couldn't do in the Super Bowl when you're going against a guy like Andy Reid.
That finally caught up with them.
Yeah, it did. You can't hide from Andy Reid. So
Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
And Andy Reid, I think a master play caller. Peter, I marvel at the way he uses guys like Smith-Schuster, picked them up from Kadarius Toney, had been the number one pick of the Giants a couple of years ago, doesn't fit in there, and then as a role player for Kansas City, had a phenomenal postseason for that team. And there's something about the culture and the play calling that Andy Reid has put together that you kind of just have to, in a way, marvel at how he can get these guys and fit them in. There's a message there about getting guys to fit into your system.
Yeah, and the big example is Schuster. I don't think Schuster is a good wide receiver. I just don't think he is. I think he's probably on the bottom end of his career. I think he's on the bottom barrel of wide receivers in the league, and he found ways to use him, especially in that Super Bowl. He didn't do much during the season, but when they needed him, Andy Reid plugged him in, and sometimes he came up big. So that was the biggest example of that. I don't think any other team would be able to get what he got out of Schuster Smith.
When they lost Tyreek Hill, People said, "Oh my goodness, they
Yeah.
lost Tyreek Hill." Who knew that a year later you'd be talking about the Super Bowl champions with Isaiah Pacheco from
Yep.
Vineland, had a
Crazy.
great late season. Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, and others. Well, we're just getting started in our Eagles offseason, combine, pre-NFL draft coverage. Stay with us throughout these months as we'll have more of these videos. We appreciate all of you for chiming in after the Super Bowl, and we always love to hear what others say about the Philadelphia Eagles and the NFL. Please remember to hit like and subscribe for future videos. For Pete Amato, this is Dave Bontempo. We'll see you soon on Why Eagles Why.